Hello, and welcome to day 6 of Title Echo's virtual launch. I am so pleased to introduce Pat Race today. He is a good friend of mine and a wonderful, wonderful artist of many disciplines. He is a force to be reckoned with in Juneau's art scene and in the art scene in Alaska in general. So I am pleased to introduce Pat. Here is his bio. Pat Race is a filmmaker and illustrator who grew up on the island of Douglas in an old water barrel. He ran around in the muskeg and blueberry bushes and got a lot of good scrapes as a kid. He went to college in Fairbanks and got a degree in computer science before moving back to Juneau and starting a couple of small businesses with his longtime friend Aaron Suring. Pat serves on the Alaska State Council for the Arts and has an avid interest in government. He has created numerous short films satirizing Alaska politics, co-hosts the Hello Alaska podcast, and draws weekly comics for the Midnight Sun political blog. He has received numerous Alaska Press Club's awards for his work. Pat was named Champion of the Arts and Education by the Alaska Education Consortium. He has served as regional judge for the Student Academy Awards and curated the screenings of over 600 locally made short films as the president of Jump Society, Juneau's local festival, which he co-founded in 2002. Pat's illustrations have been used to market Alaska seafoods and have featured in the National Fisherman magazine, as well as having been featured on Alaska's I Voted stickers in 2018. Pat's illustrations can be found at the Alaska Robotics Gallery in downtown Juneau. The Alaska Robotics Gallery was a finalist for the 2019 Will Eisenhower Spirit of Comics Award. Here is Pat.
All right, I think I'm recording. Hey, this is Pat Race. It's a weird time right now, and I'm supposed to be giving a presentation of some sort for the Title Echoes folks. I was selected as the artist, the illustrator for this year's UAS Title Echoes Literary Journal, and it was quite an honor having grown up here in Juneau. I've known about Title Echoes for quite some time, and so I created an original piece of artwork for the cover, and it was a lot of fun to work on. I drew some bears and mountains in sort of a depopulated version of the Mendenhall Valley, as if no people live there and just giant bears were peeking out from around every mountain. I draw a lot of bears, and I've been thinking a lot about absurdly large bears lately. I'm working on a children's book about a bear that eats the moon, and who knows, maybe now that I've got some time where I'm stuck at home more, I'll be wrapping that up, I hope. But anyways, yeah, today I'm here to, I guess, talk a little bit about myself, which is weird, and also it's just strange being in isolation. And, usually when you're giving a presentation like this, there's a room of people, and you can answer questions and give feedback and, tailor your presentation to the audience. But I'm just going to cast this out into the dark here and see who finds it. Where to begin? We'll start with the Billikin Bar in downtown Douglas, Alaska. This is a bar that my parents owned when I was a baby. You can see in the window it says "It's a boy." The old guys at the bar used to take bets on how many somersaults I could do across the floor there. We lived there for about 3 years. And then when my sister came along, we moved out to the Roundhouse, and the Roundhouse was out in North Douglas. It's still there. It's right before Eagle Crest. It was really this like magical fantasy wonderland kind of a place to grow up in. We had these giant anchors next to the driveway that we could climb on, and there was mazes of blueberry bushes, and the whole house was covered with all of these carvings and abalone inlays and beautiful form line design that were done by Joe Zuboff and his friends. I think he was the previous owner before we were there. I just remember like the doors in the place were amazing, and just little hidden things everywhere kind of in the background of my life. I think that probably had a big influence on my artwork, just being around all of that design stuff when I was really young. My dad was also an artist. He studied art at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and he did a lot of like weird abstract sculpture. And I remember that he and I would make a lot of like claymation movies and do a lot of practical video effects at home with the old VHS camcorder. So that was fun. Dad wore a lot of hats. Like he was always doing different jobs. He would be like working in a mining camp one week and then at a hotel the next week, or managing a bar or something. And it was just always like, I never knew what his job was because he always had like 7 different jobs. Mom was a children's book librarian for 33 years. She did story time at Douglas Library and Juneau and all over town. And I think everyone who grew up here in Juneau probably had story time here with my mom. She practiced reading children's book stories to me and my sister all the way up through high school. I can draw a pretty straight line between my desire to tell stories in a visual way and just how much she shared her enthusiasm for that with me. Mom was also a big part of connecting me to computers, because the library at the time had like this kind of they went away from the card catalog system, and they began having the computer that you could look up the books on, and then all of a sudden you realize that like one day you realize, oh wait, this is connected to other computers that aren't in this room, and those computers are connected to other computers that aren't in this room, and then pretty soon you realize that like it's connected to everything. We had a little Commodore 64 at home, and it was just kind of this computer that I play games on, but I loaded up some floppy disks, and I learned that like in the back of 321 Contact magazine they had these programs you could type out yourself, and then you start learning that you can change the variables. You can change the number of lives from 3 to 10, and then so I got really into computer programming at a young age and began writing my own games and doing a lot of like computer artwork, pixel artwork, and things like that. And so my interest in computers really blossomed. I studied that, and I ended up studying computer science in college at UAF. And I have a bachelor's degree now in computer science that I occasionally put to use, but mostly I've been making films and doing illustrations the last several years. At UAF studying computer science, I met a guy named Aaron Suring, and we had a lot of things in common. We played soccer together, we played a lot of games together, and we just had a lot of similar interests. And so we got to know each other really well, and we started a program with a bunch of our other friends called the Alaska Renaissance Project. It was this project-based learning program where we made a computer game, like an educational computer game about the serum run to Nome, and we did a book of creative writing and made a bunch of short films and did all these creative projects. And I've always really liked that style of project-based learning. My first experience with it was in high school, where I was in this thing called the Phoenix program here in Juneau, and it was like a experimental school within a school, and all of the the math and the science and English and history were all kind of intertwined. And I remember we would go into our history class and we'd learn things that overlapped with what we were learning in our math class, and it was really neat to have these projects that brought in multiple disciplines and put them to use. And I feel like that's not only is that more reflective of like navigating reality, but I think that it's particularly useful here in Alaska. Like I think in Alaska we all are jacks of all trades. We need to learn how to fix things and operate things and do a lot of weird jobs just because as part of a small community we're relied on in a variety of ways. And so one week you might be shoveling someone's boat, and the next week you might be programming a computer, and then you might be changing a tire, and then you might be welding something. And so it's nice to know a breadth of skills when you're in a small community and you're called on. After college in Fairbanks, I moved back to Juneau, and Aaron showed up a bit later, and we started a business, and we started doing a lot of like media production and video production, website design, computer programming, things like that. And we've been in business since 2002. That's kind of like the client work we do, but we also do a lot of our own personal projects. We started a film festival in 2002 called the Jump Society, the Juneau Underground Motion Picture Society. And actually, I'm just going to play a clip because that's what we can do here. I'm going to play a little clip. This is the introduction to the first film festival. Welcome to the first film festival of the Juneau Underground Motion Picture Society. The Jump Society exists to support and promote the work and art of local filmmakers here in Juneau. The Jump Society would especially like to thank the Silver Bow, Alaska On-Screen Advertising,
and the Juneau Arts and Humanities Council for making tonight's event possible. Some of the films you're about to see will contain adult content and may not be suitable for viewing by children. Other films will appear to contain no content whatsoever. The only rule in creating these films was that they be 15 minutes or less and created by Juneau artists. This left quite a bit of room for creativity and variety among the entries. Some of the films are deceptively clever, some are very simple, and some are just plain dumb. We hope you like the movies you see tonight, and we hope that you're inspired to create a film of your own. Enjoy the show.
So the Jump Society has existed now for like 17 years, and I guess right now this spring is the first time we're not having a festival, which is a little odd. I didn't quite expect it to hit that kind of a bump, but we screen typically about 20 to 25 locally made short films. Our focus on Juneau films, and we do 2 festivals a year, so we've screened probably about 700 locally made short films, which is pretty impressive. But Juneau's a really impressive community. Like, there's a lot of people here making things, people are doing things, and it's a lot of very capable people making impressive things. And that's what I love about Juneau, is that it's an inspiring community to be a part of, and that in a lot of senses we sort of seek to make our own entertainment, and we make our voices heard in a variety of interesting ways. In 2007, in an effort to distinguish some of our, to protect some of our commercial clients from our own personal projects, we decided to create a label called Alaska Robotics. And that label is like, I started doing web comics, and we do a whole bunch of like political satire and short films. We did like a fake news program that followed the legislature for a number of years. And we've done all kinds of things under the Alaska Robotics label. But in 2012, we opened the Alaska Robotics Gallery, and that's like a comic book art gallery that is downtown at 220 Front Street. And we're shuttered for the time being during this pandemic, but we'll be open again soon. And we sell comic books and local artwork and art supplies and board games and all kinds of fun things that are tied into sort of like visual storytelling. And it's the kind of place that I sort of wish that I had growing up here. There were some good like baseball card shops and comic book shops a little bit, but nothing quite like this. And this has been fun to build and fun to curate and fun to be a part of. In 2016, we took another step. One of the things that we've been doing kind of the whole time we've been in business is just bringing artists to Juneau. There's always been this opportunity to go out and learn more about creating comics or writing stories or whatever it is. But at some point we realized that bringing people to Juneau was more beneficial for our community and actually made for a better personal experience. Like, we would get a lot more out of it bringing someone to Juneau than going out and taking a class somewhere. And so we started flying in artists, and instead of buying advertising for the store, or instead of paying to go to a class, we would pay people and cover their airfare and bring them to Alaska. One of the first people we brought to town was Kazu Kibuishi, and he's become a really good friend. Through him, we met a ton of other comic book artists and children's book artists. And we eventually like built this kind of like network of friendship, and that turned into the Alaska Robotics Minicon. I remember Kazu one day just said, "Why don't you have your own convention here in Juneau?" And so I was like, "Yeah, we should do that." And so we invited a bunch of artists to town, and we had the first Alaska Robotics Minicon, which was like a one-day tiny-sized Juneau convention, and then a retreat out to a campground with a bunch of artists. When it gives people a chance to connect with one another, and it's been really like a good thing for us. Just last year, 2019, we were nominated and we were finalists for the Will Eisner Spirit of Comics Award, and that was a huge honor. That's an international award for comic shops. And we weren't the winners. I don't know, we just do like goofy little store events, and we like bringing people to town and connecting with our community. So I'd say we're very community based, we're very community oriented. A lot of my artwork today finds finds and draws inspiration from the city that I live in. Like I do this postcards from Juneau series that just features all these little places around town, and it's got Nimbus, and it's got the bear by the Capitol building, and it's got Pelmani and things like that in it. And then like last year I did these pixel art pieces that are illustrations of Juneau in sort of an 8-bit style. I am fairly politically active. I follow a lot of Alaska politics. I'm really interested in Alaska history. I serve on the Alaska State Council for the Arts as well. And in 2015, I started a podcast called Hello Alaska with my friend Matt Buxton. He's a journalist, and I just sort of ask him questions mostly about what's going on in the news, and that's been a lot of fun to help me kind of like unpack current events and learn more about the state that I'm in. And I also do a lot of political comics these days. We've got kind of recurring characters like Lars the muskox. He's named after the Large Animal Research Station up in Fairbanks. And I've got, every once in a while Jay Hammond's ghost will pop up. And it's sort of a fun project, and I try and take a lighthearted spin. I'm a little critical of some people in Alaskan government, I suppose. But it's important to be critical, I think, sometimes. One of the things I've had the opportunity to do over the years is work with the Rasmussen Foundation. I've done a lot of little mini docs on their winners of their Distinguished Artist Awards. And so I've had this incredible honor and privilege, and I've been able to go around and have conversations with these just outstanding artists. And I think that the thing that I always try to ask them is, like, what advice do you have for someone who's like a younger artist following in your footsteps, or what advice would you have for yourself if you were starting over your journey? And so I'm going to try and ask myself that question right now. And I think that it is really important to pursue your interests. So for me, that was comics and storytelling and filmmaking and politics and history, and it's all scattered, but it all starts tying together. And so find the things that draw you to them and allow yourself to be drawn in, and then figure out later on what it means. Don't overthink it. Just kind of enjoy the pursuit of knowledge and the pursuit of art, and you'll find what you're supposed to find on the other side.